StreamYard.
I believe so,
Okay.
yes. Don't quote me on that. Okay, cool. Yay. Okay. Instagram's almost ready. Instagram's ready too. Wow, technology. Okay. Um and okay, are you good on your end?
I think so. Am I hitting live yet or not yet?
Yes, hit it.
Go live. Okay.
Oh,
I'm
hey,
all good.
Vesna joined. Majeda, I know you sent me a voice note of how to pronounce your name, and I've listened to it 3 times, and I just feel like every time I'm going to butcher it. So I'm like afraid I'm going to say it wrong. Oh, Brian joined. Oh, wonderful. Brian, you should go join your wife's live, even though she probably wasn't live when you joined mine. And because she says she's going to be mad if you don't. But yay. Okay. Well, thank you. And I feel like I know the way that we have this, like my Instagram's over here and StreamYard's over here, but I think we figured it out. So thank you, Christy, for being up for this. I know you and I have had a couple of conversations just about our experiences with motherhood and what it's like to feel like you're finding your footing and your identity as a woman who is now a mother. Like life before babies and life after babies is obviously very different because of the children themselves and your lifestyle changes, but your identity evolves too. And it's very it having children takes a lot out of you, and it's almost like you have to rebuild in some ways, or at least that's been my experience. um and it's like finding ways back to who you were, but also like finding who you are and who you aren't in like the new landscape and how you navigate all of that. So I figured we haven't really gotten to go deep on this topic, so why not do it as a live conversation?
I love
um
it. Let's
so
do it.
thank you for being willing to talk about this live. Do you want to take just a couple minutes to introduce yourself before we dive in?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Christy Schnurl. I'm a multifamily investor and consultant. I've been in the multifamily real estate space for 15 years. So I started my journey for 5 years. I worked for a syndication firm and focused the whole time I was in acquisition. So that's where I learned underwriting, due diligence review, worked with institutional level investors. And then over the last decade or so, I've been working actually within my family business. We're a consulting firm and we help multifamily developers to reduce construction costs. So,
Cool.
yeah.
I didn't realize that I didn't know that you did that up until very recently. So I feel like I'm still learning more things about you as we go. Um, and so I guess I'll introduce myself. So I'm Rosie Noel. I also did consulting, a very different form of consulting and underwriting in a prior life as well, not on the multifamily side, but so not in real estate, but I worked for over 15 years in corporate as a consultant, and on healthcare, I worked with employer groups to help them be strategic about how they spend their dollars when it comes to health and welfare. So think of like insurance plans or other employee benefits, like what type of wellness program do we invest in for our employees, et cetera. And then, so I did underwriting related to that and overall consulting. And then I switched into coaching and talent development, and was doing that for several years. And then started my coaching business in the fall, and now I am no longer a corporate employee. So life has been a lot more fulfilling since working for myself, but also it's definitely, I think, part of how we came up we got some energy around this topic of like getting our pink back is because at least for me personally, when I started my business and went through this transition over the fall, I didn't expect that embarking on a professional growth journey would lead to so much personal growth. I expected it
Mhm.
to be there, but I didn't expect it's like one to one. And sometimes it's more personal growth than business growth. And so I think I realized through that process how much I'm still rediscovering myself as a mom and how I want to show up for myself and for others in like business settings, right? Not just friendships and at home, but in business settings as well. So I feel like I'm still embarking on a lot of new territory. And so when I talked to you about it, I was surprised to hear from you because I think what my kids are 2 and 4. I think you have a 3-year-old and then an older kid. How old are your kids? Maybe I'm off a little bit.
Yeah, so my 3-year-old is turning 4 tomorrow.
Oh, happy
Yeah.
early birthday, little Gemini.
It's a Gemini. Through. And then, yeah, I have an 8.5-year-old as well.
Okay.
Yeah, both boys.
Both boys, yes. We're on the boy plan. Vina is like the only outlier amongst us that has girls.
Girls.
Jada was definitely not expecting such personal growth. Yes. And I've loved that part of being an entrepreneur because I've always been a person that's leaned really hard into personal development. But whew, I don't think I really realized how much a toll motherhood had taken on me. And I don't know if that's exactly the right word, but I don't think until recently where it's like you feel so like out over your skis. I don't know what the phrase is, but I feel like a newborn in starting my own business, but I also feel like a newborn in like leaning into my career as a mom and not feeling like I'm in pure survival mode. And I think that's part of where this came from is it's like, okay, it's not the long nights anymore. It's not like, yes, my kids still need a lot from me because they're little, but it's not the like pure survival mode that it is in their first 2 years. So yeah, so I'd be curious for you, like maybe just tell me a little bit about the concept of, and you sent me this cute little mug, and because I was running late from my appointment, I didn't get it. If I would have gone into the kitchen to get it, my kids would have seen me and then they would have cried and I would have been late to this call, hence mom life. But you sent me this cute little
I can
mug.
share. So we've got one for myself as well. So we've got these, and I guess I'll share the background because a lot of the people probably don't yet know why we're even talking about your pink back. So yeah, this little flamingo, and I thought it was appropriate that she also has a crown.
Yes, I love that.
But yeah, this topic I think was born out of this this story or symbolism that I had heard a few years ago. So this was something I did not make this up. It was just something I heard that's resonated with me and that I've kind of carried with me. But it was probably, maybe it was 3 years ago now, 3 years ago. There's someone I saw on social media, to give her credit. I think it's like the fruits of motherhood or motherhood fruits or something along those lines. But she posted it. And basically it's this whole concept about when a mother, I guess in nature, a lot of the time, mother flamingos who are pink, when they have babies, a lot of them will turn gray after they've had babies. So they'll lose all of their pink. And then as the babies grow older and they're less dependent on them and the mom is like not feeding them, I think a lot of that has to do with like the nutrition of giving up a lot. It's going to those babies. And then so the algae or whatever it is that they're eating or they consume that gives them that pink, they're, mostly giving away. And then once they are weaning off of that and they start taking care of themselves again, and they're like refilling their own cup and refilling their nutrition, these gray mom flamingos then start to turn pink again. So, as humans, we don't literally turn gray, but, I identified that with that in the sense that like, as a mother or as a parent in general, but I think especially as a mother who's also the like birthing mother, the giving, like physically, like that added on to it, I could relate to as well, because the amount that you give of your body when you're pregnant and even leading up into pregnancy, and that the care that you're doing around it and everything is like very much like focused on the baby. And then you're born and then they're born. And then all of that, the nutrition then is, shifted into milk and all of these production things. So it's like physically, like there's a lot that's being given when you're in that mode, in addition to you're giving all the other things, right? You have all of this like emotional and mental changes that have happened. So for me, that story and hearing it, I was just like, man, like that makes so much sense. And, I've shared with people that have gotten to know me over the last couple of years that I have felt like, especially 2023, I have defined as like, it was the year of me like getting my pink back. And that's where I think it came up with you.
Yes.
A lot of that was kind of stepping out of like, my kids are older, and I didn't realize until I shifted and started focusing on some other areas. Like I've been entrepreneurial, I've been in small businesses, and I've been doing these things all these years. But until I moved into a new space and I found a community that of people who are more like-minded with me, and all of a sudden, similar to you, like I started experiencing and really leaning into personal development and personal growth. Like I identified with it over the years and would work on strengths or work on myself, but like so many of the biggest mindset shifts have happened in the last like year and a half. And I feel like I was like going through this huge growth period. As I'm going through this growth period, I'm noticing that like, whoa, I didn't know how much I lost myself along the way, because it'd be simple things where you're talking with people, or you're going through these exercises where it's like, oh, well, what are your visions? Like, what are your goals? What do you like to do? What do you want in all of these things? And when I actually stopped and slowed down and I started to think about it, I realized I have no idea, and so for me, I think it was a lot of like realizing that an identity that I had for so many years, I just didn't even notice that I had like pushed it to the back burner once my kids were there. And it wasn't anything that like anyone did. It was just like subconsciously me as a mother, the way that I like adapted to that transformation in my life, and then prioritized everything around that. And then along, like, just didn't even notice that all of a sudden every TV show was like chosen by someone else in my family. Like music, I have no, the other story that I share is like I did a road trip with Ice in the fall. We drove out to Phoenix. So it was like 5-6 hour, whatever, in the car. And she's asking me, she's like, what kind of music, like, what's your favorite music to listen to? And I felt so dumb. I told her this too. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I have no idea. I was like, I don't ever listen to music. Like, I was like, my time to choose music is like while I'm working. And most of the time I'm focusing on the work. And if I have an opportunity to choose music, I'm usually not actually, I'm choosing like podcasts or the things to consume. And I was like, at the times that music is in my life, it's being chosen by my children. And I've allowed that, and that's just the culture. So anyhow, it's just like all these little things, like you just start to notice and you're like, wow, I didn't even know that like I stopped prioritizing myself, or stopped like choosing that identity, I guess, in a way, or keeping those things forefront, and then they kind of just disappeared without me noticing. So to me, that felt like the graying, and then like the pink coming back, and me like choosing to what my life is going to look like, and starting to shape and really start to think about like, okay, what do I want? Like outside of just like trying to be a good mom and a good, wife and family and friend, and commit, like, what do I want myself for myself?
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, well, I have to read some comments that came in too, because they're entertaining as you were saying some of that. And I know we can't see the same things on Instagram. Carolina said, I certainly turned gray and lost half of my hair. Why I was lucky that I did not lose hair with my kids. I lost a lot of other things, like my sanity for certain, but I did not lose my hair. But that's the vast majority of people do lose hair when all the hormones shift.
I literally turned gray, actually. Each child, I got ridiculously more gray with each pregnancy. So I guess I technically did turn gray.
Yeah, you know what? I think I definitely got more grays as you say that. I'm like, yeah. Wait, there's like so many things to say. I'm like, have to really exercise a lot of self-management for my squirrel brain of thoughts. So it's funny. There's like there's like a dichotomy in the comments, because Carolina's like, yep, I turned gray and lost my hair. Jada's like, oh, wow, thanks for preparing me for motherhood. And then Danya goes, definitely not having children. Hi, Priya. So it's just, we got perspectives all over.
Scaring them away.
It cracks me. Yes. The goal is not to scare you, but it is it is really, I don't know how to describe what it, and I've only been a mom for 4 years, right? Like I don't know what the journey of motherhood is. Okay. Wait, Marina said, I didn't turn gray until my fourth child, and it was severe. I dye my hair every 2 weeks. 4 kids. Wow. I think, do you have 5 kids? I don't know where I got 5 from. In another life, I would have had 4 children, but I had my first kid at 34. So I was like, I don't have it in me to pop out 4 children starting at 34. That's just not going to happen. But it is like to the point that you made, like, yeah, like you lose yourself, and I think you said like you made the choice, and yes, though technically it's a choice. It's like, I also don't know how you're a mom where you still hang on to your identity and give to your children in all the ways that they need you to. I'm
Yeah.
sure that I'm sure somebody's been able to do that somewhere, but I don't know how you do that, because there's so much that they need from you. You go from being pregnant where they are drawing from you physically, right? Like if you're pregnant and you don't drink enough water, you get dizzy or you pass out or you get nauseous, right? Like you get these physical cues that require you to give to the baby. If
Mhm.
you don't eat enough, they take um like they'll take nutrients from your bones. So you'll lose like bone density just to grow the baby if you're not eating enough. So if you're somebody
Mhm.
that's sick all of the time when you're pregnant and you can't eat enough, the baby still has to grow. So they're taking it from other areas. So like you go from that to nursing, which same thing, like they're taking from you physically. And so, and they need so many things physically, like they just physically need you when, even if they're not taking from you from a nutrition standpoint, when like if and when you're nursing, they still just need your physical presence and your comfort, and like they need you to be tending to them all of the time. So I don't know how you hang on to identity when that is just running your life. You're sleep deprived. So it's like
Mhm.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like you're not meeting your most, like you have shelter, right? But that's about it. Like you barely have food and water. Like you do from an access standpoint, but you don't really have much time to eat or drink or whatever outside of the bare necessities.
Yeah,
Oh wait,
that's so true.
and Marina said, when picking up my son from kinder, the fellow girl on the slide said, "Oh, are you his grandmother?" I started dying then. I used to put myself in time off for a break. I have 7 children. Whoo, baby. Wow, that is impressive.
Mhm.
I'm impressed that it only took you to get to your fourth to get more gray hair. But
Yeah.
damn, 7 kids. I think about now, like I would love to have another kid, but I just don't know. I it's like I feel like I it's like the mental, physical, and emotional cost. Like you have to weigh all of those things.
Mhm.
And it's like, do I think my body can handle it? Do I think my mental state can handle it? Do I think my emotional state can handle it? Like,
Yeah.
and that's a hard thing to weigh.
Mhm.
But what was it? You were saying something. Oh, so okay, and I'll share more about my experience too, but I want to hear a little bit more about yours. So it sounds like you chose this theme of getting your pink back in 2023
Mm.
because you were kind of realizing some of the things that were like, maybe reiterate like what triggered you to choose that theme, and then like tell me your reflections now after choosing that as a theme for 2023.
Yeah, I think the reason I chose it was because 2023, I started switching what I was focusing on. So I was very much in this very long season of just floating along and like a good life and happy, things are fine, but like not, I just kind of forgot about the fact that like we had big goals in our life or things we wanted to do. We wanted to travel. We wanted to like own real estate and have passive income and like do these things that like, that my husband and I had talked about in college. And it kind of struck me that I was like, we're not really doing any of the things that like we had said. And it was kind of just this mindset of like, oh, it'll come, like it was just there, but not really talked about or revisited. So I started to think about that and it's a very silly realization, but it's like, okay, well, if these are things we want, like we actually have to start doing something, like putting action behind them to make them happen, right? And as I started to think in that way, I started to also think about, because even in my work and in my career, it was just going along. Like for a decade now, I've been working within my family business, and the whole the arrangement has always been like, once, my dad retires, I'll choose which pieces of the business makes sense to continue forward, and I'll kind of just continue those forward. And, there wasn't much thought put in beyond like, what will that look like in planning? And is this what I want? It was just like, yeah, I enjoy this enough. This is available. And this is just what I'm kind of going with. And then the real estate goal in particular, once I decided that I wanted to start like building other streams of income for us and start like figuring out like building future wealth that would support us better down the road that we could start now, that's when it turned, like, originally it was just going to be more of like a very passive activity. And then I got kind of drawn in with the community to where it became way more active, because I found people I identified with, and especially in the multifamily space, it wasn't really a community I'd come across before.
Yeah.
And so I finally found like, I found like a space, and like, more importantly, it wasn't the thing, it was like the people that I came into contact with. And so as I was like meeting all these amazing people, building friendships, building relationships, it shifted my mindset in terms of what I wanted. Because then I realized, I'm like, why am I settling for like a life or a career that like is fine, but when I could instead choose something that's going to fulfill me in so many different ways. And that's when I kind of, it just like was the eye opener of, oh, I could actually like have a life by design where my business is also like my friendships and my community and my traveling, and like I can pour into other people or help. Like there's so many things that can be packaged in the one thing that, to me, I got really passionate and excited about that, because that just like ticked so many boxes, and it was just like, felt so much more in alignment with what I would have chosen had I been much more conscious of it way back early when. And so I think for me, that was when that like pink thing, especially, I was like, oh, this is me getting my pink back, like feeling seen for being me, like realizing I have value. Because that's the other thing too, as a mom, like over time, I kind of forgot that like I've done things that help people. Like you're put into such like it's a very important role that you're playing, but it feels very, menial is not the word I'm looking for, but like mundane, like the things on a day-to-day basis and the things you're focused on, or the majority of your interactions, it's easy to start to feel like it doesn't matter. Like I'm just this caretaker person, and I'm like a thing in the house that exists that's like, but like me as a person and an individual, that's not as present in this, right? And so in everything else, I started to remember like I am, and other people can see that, and I show up. And for me, just being there was like, they're seeing themselves, I'm seeing that, it's like, it was just a different dynamic that was outside of motherhood that to me kind of triggered it.
Yeah.
Well, that was a long answer to kind of.
Yeah, no. That's really helpful just to hear, because I don't, even with my friends, like we were friends first before we were moms. Like most of my friends that are moms are people that I was friends with before they became moms. Like I haven't made a lot of new mom friends.
Yeah.
But because we were friends first, we didn't become friends through becoming moms. We don't really like talk about that stuff. We talk about like the things that are hard, or like the things we're going through, our kids are going through, but like this more, I don't know, like the more like philosophical aspect of it. It just doesn't come up in day-to-day conversations. So when you said it, I was like, oh, I was like, I feel like that's a version of what I'm going through too. And so, okay, my last question for you on that is like, now that you like made that a focus area, looking back now, like, what did you like, did you get where you wanted to go? Did you end up somewhere different and you thought that was okay? Or like, what are your reflections overall?
In terms of like where I thought like pre-mom and like early me of
When
my journey,
you
like looking for it, or
when you said that you were going to make like getting your pink back a focus, that you were going to like
oh,
find your identity and
mhm,
lean more into your
mhm,
yourself, like what are your reflections on since having made that a focus for the last year and a half or so?
mhm. I would say like I don't feel like that transformation is done. I think it's the beginning. So for me, it was more of like open, like choosing a path or something. It's like
Yeah.
I made the choice to go down the path. And so now I'm going down that and there's focus and I'm constantly growing. Like it's been a very high growth period over the last year and a half, been pushing in like a lot of just mindset and personal development work around a lot of these thoughts that I think also carried me through that early motherhood period and losing myself, like recognizing those patterns and breaking some of those patterns and reframing things. And um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know that there's a major transformation after, other than knowing that I'm conscious about the fact that I'm like, no, like I individually matter too, and I need to be like pursuing this and seeing the struggles, because sometimes that's not easy. I traveled a lot last year and I've done a lot of extra things where it's like I'm not don't just have a like 9 to 5 anymore. I'm working a lot of extra hours and my kids are seeing that. And sometimes that's fine. And sometimes it's challenging, because
Yeah.
sometimes I'm getting, Andrew's older, he's 8.5. So sometimes there's comments around, you're always working, or you're going to be on your computer, or you're going to be gone, or he's making comments around stuff
Mm.
like that, where it's then a discussion point of, making sure and me reprioritizing how I'm spending the time, that I'm not doing those things. Whereas like I have been good, I think, for most of their childhood of being like a present mom who was like spending quality time and sure to like pay attention to them. But now I think I try to be more intentional with some of those moments of like really making sure, trying to think, how can we connect a little bit more, and make sure that those are open dialogues where it's like, this isn't me choosing to like not be with you or to be away from you. This is me choosing, one, something that for myself brings me joy. Two is helping other people. Three is like helping our family. And then beyond that, there's not, because sometimes he's like, oh, well, once this goes, once you do these things and you're whatever, you like make a lot of money, you're doing this, then then you won't do that anymore or something. And I've had to say, well, no, because it's not about like, yes, these things are things that like financially will, help us or set us up, but like it's not just about that. So trying to explain too about like how it's important for each of us as individuals to choose things that fulfill us, and how part of what is fulfilling to me and important to me is that I can continue to help other people. So I'm like, it's not just about like me doing something for our family. I want to help other people do these things for their families so they get the same sort of experience, or they get to understand this like for themselves. So it's also the lessons, like rethinking too, even just like how I'm showcasing to my kids and what those lessons are. And
Yeah. Yeah, and facilitating the conversations around them is, yeah, with an 8-year-old, like I am just with my 4-year-old now, like realizing how much he understands and how much I need to take the time to explain to him. Like I had a period where I was traveling a lot and I was like, I know it feels really hard and I'm not always going to be traveling like this. It's hard for me too. And just know that part of why I'm doing this is like I do really love what I'm doing. And I'm also doing it so that it can help us reach the goals that we have for our family in the long term. And he was like, okay, he understood as much as a 4-year-old could. But I do think it's important to talk to your kids about
mhm,
that kind of stuff. And I think we were raised in a way that like you talk to kids as though they were like not human almost. And I think it's
mhm,
becoming like just because if an adult was crying, you wouldn't laugh at them, but if a kid is crying, you laugh at them,
mhm,
right? Like what the sadness is the same. Why is it funny when it's a kid but not when it's an adult? Like
yeah,
so it just the more I grow as a parent, it also helps me grow more just as a human in general and have an
yeah,
appreciation for things like
yes,
that. And wait, Alexi said, I went through similar self-discovery, but on the guy side, as long as your growth sets some example for kids, it's worth it. Yeah, I love that perspective. And it's true, like that as you were talking, and I think you and I were talking about with Vesna a little bit about this topic. Like before I started my coaching business, when I was in the corporate world and had kids, I was like, I want to travel as little as possible. And whatever the minimum amount of nights away I can have, like, I want to do the bare minimum of travel. So if I can get away with just being gone for one night, then I'm going to just be gone for one night, even if that means a shitty travel schedule. And, um, but then that, like, once I started traveling for things related to my business, it just, that shifted. There was no like one night of travel anymore. It was like multiple nights, and I was enjoying the company that I was with as well. So it was like, so it was longer periods of time, but it was also something I looked forward to. And I had such a hard time being away, and such a hard time coming back and seeing the kids. We talked about this, like coming back from traveling and seeing that my kids didn't want me to put them to, they always want me to put them to bed. And then, but the nights when I would come back, they'd be like, I want Daddy to put us to bed. And it's so dumb. Obviously he deserves for the kids to want him to put them to bed, right? Sometimes, but I'm like, they don't want me anymore, and I don't want them to feel guilt. So I don't like show the emotions that I have when that happens. But in my head, I'm like, oh, that hurts. And, but I will say, despite all of that, like those comments, it's always so much easier said than done. Like, put on your own mask first. Like, people are always saying that to
Oh, yeah.
moms, and fill up your own cup first. Okay, yes, sure. But like, in theory, that sounds really nice, but it is so hard in practice to see a need in front of you and essentially
Mhm.
choosing your need above that, because it's like a long-term play. Like,
Mhm.
that yes, I'm choosing to be away from my children who do physically need my presence. And I'm choosing to essentially deny that short term need, because I know that by filling my own cup, it will actually help me to show up as a better mom, that will then be like, create, like, help them more than just in that moment where they needed me. But it's a sacrifice either way. But I think for me, realizing like how much better of a mom I show up as when I do, God forbid, go out to dinner with a friend. It's not often that I do it, but I'm like, my husband used to try to like,
Oh, you froze on my end, Rosie. Rosie, come back. Okay, I don't know if you're frozen everywhere.
I don't know.
There's
Can
a
you hear
lag. I'm
can you hear
looking.
me?
Oh, you're coming back. Yes.
Ah,
Because when I
and then
look over Instagram screen, it looks like there's a delay there, so I can't tell. I'm like,
you
she's
got
still
frozen
talking.
in
Is she
like a
still
really
talking?
weird position.
Yeah, it was
Um,
different.
it's no, we have ongoing internet issues. My poor husband spent so many hours trying to figure them out, and it's still the bane of his existence. But um, but it wasn't until I started traveling recently that, like, as hard as it's been, I've just realized, I don't know if you've seen those. Um, like, I feel like there's this quote is floating around on social media, and I haven't dug into the research to see if it's just a nice quote somebody put on social media or if it's actually based on something substantial. But it was saying that like children's happiness is directly correlated to like children's happiness that they are able to experience in their lifetime, or I don't remember exactly what the time frame was, but is directly correlated to like the mom's mental and emotional well-being, and like the mom's joy, and etc. And that, like, when I see that kind of stuff, I'm like, wow, okay. I want to go research it to see if that's actually like founded on something. But even if it isn't, like, I still think that there's my own experience of like the more fulfilled I feel as a human, I know the better mom I show up as. I can have those conversations with them. I can
Mhm.
meet just more than just their immediate needs. I can meet their emotional needs, that I can't meet their emotional needs if I am not attending to my own emotional needs. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
so, so yeah, whew, being a parent is hard. And for me, like, my journey of like motherhood, I went through like 4 I essentially 4 years, just shy of 4 years of like being pregnant and nursing, like
Mhm.
pregnant for short of a year and then nursing for a year. Pregnant right after the same month I stopped nursing, the next month I got pregnant. And then this clock started all over again. And so it was like just under 4 years of being pregnant and nursing, essentially like using my body to either grow a human or feed a human.
Mhm.
And so that was, oh, and it wasn't Marina who has 4 kids. I think Majida, she has 7 kids. Um, so like God bless the people that could, like there are some women that just like back to back to back.
Mhm.
And it took so much out of me. By the time that my second was I had to stop nursing around the 9-month mark because I noticed my mental health was deteriorating. It was kind of like
Mhm.
the um, the things that I was doing with my first kid, when I went back to work and I was trying to do all of the same things, I was realizing I couldn't. Like my amount of resources stayed the same, but the amount of responsibilities
Yeah.
doubled. Um, and I remember I went to go see a therapist that was specifically like worked with moms postpartum at any point in their fertility journey, pregnancy, postpartum. And she was like, yeah, she's like, I see this a lot usually with women after their second kid when they go back to work and they try to do all the things they were doing before and they can't and it's breaking them. And that's essentially what was happening to me. And I've had mental health struggles in the past, so like that wasn't new, but even realizing for me as my mental health was declining, I was like, okay, Rosie, you can't afford to go into a depression. Like you have children that need you, and so you have to figure this out. So I had to make the choice: do I keep nursing knowing that like my mental health is declining, or do I try to I wanted to go back on like some supplements that were not approved for nursing that helped with my mental health previously. And so like making that choice of like, do I tend to my mental health or do I try to nurse for a year because that's like the best thing to do if you can't, like all of
Yeah.
those like that's not even a micro decision, but like micro
Yeah.
decisions, macro decisions, and anywhere in between like that, the the weight of making those decisions is so heavy. Um and so like, but I am finally feeling like I am in a better mental headspace. I think a lot of it was tied to many different factors, but a lot of it was tied to my corporate job and just not feeling fulfilled there anymore. And anyway, my point is like I have realized it's like in theory I was trying to sacrifice to give to my kids, but really
Mhm.
I wasn't giving them what they really needed. And it's just it's so screwed up because it's like you think you're doing the right thing and it's not that it was the wrong thing, but that like filling your own cup up first. Like I don't I wish there was a better way for us to manage manage to that or figure out what that looks like. Or is it just like we just have to suck it up and say, well, the mom years are just shit, and you just like the early mom years, right? Like the pregnancy nursing phases are just like that first year of life is so difficult, and yes, you're going to get lost and you just have to find yourself again. Like is that what I'm trying to ask, like is that just part of the gig, or is there a world where like you can actually learn how to have a little bit more harmony and not get totally lost along the way?
Yeah. It's a good question because I don't know. I think especially I think it's almost a better or not a better question, but like a more I feel like it's a question that actually may contribute to like maybe two, three, four, five, but I feel like not at all to one, if that makes sense. Because I think
Mm,
it's so like the changes that happen even just with that first pregnant, I mean, even biologically, right? Like the first time you're ever pregnant, your neurologically, your brain physically changes. Like they can do take scans of two women and look at the brains and know which one was pregnant, which one was not, because like your brain physically changes. So it's like there are so many things that happen that you change who you are because you have to. Like I
yeah.
think regardless when you become a parent in general, there's a transformation that's supposed to happen and it does happen. And I think if it doesn't happen, that's mortality, there's something very wrong there if there's zero transformation and you're now a parent. Like it has to be. Like you do have a new identity and you do see the world in a whole totally different lens, and life is different. Like just all of that changes. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think like I always try to share with people if they're, considering having kids or they're in the process or they're pregnant, that like just be prepared that like yes, it happens to parents because like I watched, like my husband experienced it. Like everyone struggles with that transformation, but I think in particular the mother, like especially the physical aspects of it, like it is so challenging moving through that period because they are physically dependent on you, like when you birth them and you do all of these things. And I think when you're moving through that, I think it's I think what I'm trying to say is that that period, in my opinion, for the first one is literally a survival period. And like, I don't think we have a lot of choice in like holding on to pieces of ourselves in that, or to do like, I think in the Maslow, like we're just survival mode for that one. And that's just what it is.
Yeah.
However, I do think as you move forward, like that major transformation, you'll change each time with each kid and adapt. But I think, in my opinion, it's not the same transformation. It's not like you're like becoming this like new person kind of in the way that first one changes you. And so I think there is opportunity in that to try to hold on, or to think like, how do we do this a little bit differently, or how can I still hold on to pieces of myself or feel like I have an oxygen mask, because you're no longer in survival mode. Some of it is a learned game or you've already made the transition. So there's more opportunity there to adapt some other things or to do something differently. But I don't know, I'm with you. It's the first year is just so hard. So hard.
And it's like, the second is iterative. And I think too, it's like if it's your second kid relative to your third kid, or the age gap, like my kids were 23 months apart. And so I was dealing with a toddler who was hitting his brother every day from the day he was born. Like there's all of these factors. And there's like I liked Alexi said, oh wait, what did he say? He said, we're not preparing women for becoming mothers. That's why it's so shocking to them. I admire all the hard work mothers do more than anything. And I do think there's very much a like, women have been giving birth since the dawn of time. So they were made for this. So this is, I don't know if people think it's easy for them, but it's like, same thing with nursing. Like you just throw the kid on there and it's good. I don't understand. People have been doing this for the cave people were doing it. I feel like so much about motherhood gets diminished to being like, it's natural to be a mom, but it's not natural to be a mom in, I don't know, even like, I think that's a very nuanced statement, but like, it's not natural to like be a mom and do all the things moms do and also thrive as a human who's more than just a mom in 2024. Whether you stay home with your children or don't, like there's no dads who are just a dad, right? Like there's, even if they stay at home, it's not like you're just a dad. You're still like a human that has all of these other things and responsibilities. And I think there's just more of an expectation that they carry this burden that's different. And wait, Alexi said one more thing.
I think, well, at least, and I'll put it in the lens of America, but I feel like in our society and our culture, there's still, and maybe it's just because it's ingrained in me from growing up, but like, I feel like there's an innate like pressure. So to like to what you're speaking about, it pops up in all these little ways. Like you go to a park and if my husband takes the kids, then they go to the park, like he's been like praised before for like, oh, what a good dad. Like, you're walking the baby or you have them at the park. It's like he has like on multiple occasions been like praised or complimented for something. And I'm not saying he's not deserving of the compliment, but like, have I ever been praised or complimented for bringing my child to a grocery store or to having them at the park? Like, no, and like, I find myself, ironically, also, I do the same thing, like subconsciously, right? Like you're going along, you're at a grocery store and you look over and you see a dad and he's got like the 3 kids with him and they're juggling or doing whatever. And like in my head, I'm thinking like, oh, that's a good dad. Like I do it myself. So it's like, not that I'm like going over and complimenting him on that, but like it's so ingrained with this,
Yeah.
like, here's sort of what's the expectation that like you're a bad mom if you're not doing this, right? And like all the ones that, even though there's acceptance, like to your point, like the nursing is like a really hard challenge that so many women like face, because there's so much pressure of like nursing or don't, or like rest is best, or if you can't, or you shouldn't be, you know, whatever. Like there's so much stuff around all of this, that regardless of the choice that you make, like you end up feeling like there's no good. It was like, it's like pick your poison with so many things. And I feel like no matter what, it's trying to release, learning how to release the guilt of knowing I'm making the best choice that I can for my family and whatever these choices are. And like, no matter what, I feel like I'm either going against the grain with society and it's not good enough, or it's going against with my kid. Like, there's so many different things and all of that that I just feel like are shaped, and there's added pressure that we can't even see necessarily, that are constantly we carry with us as mothers in our society.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, we could have several more conversations on that topic because it goes so deep and it is, yeah, yes to everything you said. And I want to keep talking, but A, I want to be mindful of your time, and B, also my husband, he's been prioritizing me and my work time so much. He has a work event tonight, so I'm relieving the nanny in 5 minutes to be with my kids. And what was I going to say? Oh, wait, Alexi, he said, we simply need to worship motherhood and culture again. I love that. I would say for me personally, like, yes, celebrating moms and having like as a culture, celebrating moms, not just other, I think women are really good at celebrating other moms. But I don't think culturally motherhood is celebrated. It's very much looked at as, I don't want to say a negative, but moms are the least likely, they're the least desirable candidate for people to hire, right? Companies to hire. They'd rather hire a dad is their number one candidate to hire, and a mom is their least likely candidate to hire. So, um, okay. So what do you have like a parting thought, inquiry, comment, reflection that you want to share before we hop off?
Hmm. I would say, I don't know. I think I just hope that more people can use the reminder like I did of the flamingo and the pink, like to be able to see the mirror, or to find something that they resonate in their journey, if they have sort of like gone gray and they don't even realize that they're gray, that they find the thing that's the mirror for them reflecting back, so that they can then find the path to become pink again.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it doesn't, like, yes, we're talking about in the context of motherhood, but I think I can think back to times in my life pre-motherhood where I lost myself along the way too. It's just motherhood
Mhm.
is a totally different beast and it's a different
Mhm.
magnitude. Um, and so no, does it compare to the times when I was younger? No, but I don't think you have to be a mom to also
Mhm.
recognize that you might be losing yourself too. And if you
Yeah.
can figure out how to not lose yourself when you're younger before you have kids, you probably be learning some skills for if you decide to become a mom when you're later, you'll be learning skills that will serve you very well once you
Yeah.
become a mom. Um, life is beautiful. Live in the moment. Majeda said, "Thank you." And Alexi said, "More guys understand how hard your job is than we commonly think. Be proud of it." I am proud of it. It's
Mhm.
hard, but I am proud of the little humans that I
Mhm.
produced, um, and supporting, like just being a part of. Like it's really cool getting to be an entrepreneur with other parents and seeing how like holistic the lifestyles are. Where it's like we have our kids. It's not just like I'm a
Mhm.
parent from 9 to 5, or I'm a worker from 9 to 5 and a parent from 5 to 9. So that's been really cool and very, very fulfilling for me too. Um,
Yeah.
so, well, thank you. Thank you for we could keep going. I feel like we barely scratched the surface of all of the things that we could talk about on this topic, but thank you. I feel like I always learn a lot when I talk to you.
I
And
feel the same way.
you're a great communicator. Clifton Strengths deliberative number 2. It's your word. It's like you're so intentional with your
Oh,
words.
And yet my communication's at the bottom on click distance.
Yes, but that's that's different for you. Like people that are high deliberative, usually are just very, very intentional with their words. And so I always learn a lot, even just from the way that you storytell. So thank you.
Interesting. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for your time. And this was a good topic going into with you. So,
well, thank you. Thanks again, Christine. Thanks everyone for joining and for all the comments along the way. I will see you all soon.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.